Hainesville, March 28, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Please stand and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Jerry Bailey.
Here.
Steve George Duberstein.
Here.
Christian Almeth. Here. Wally Priest.
Here.
Mary Colville. Here. Jack Schnaueth.
Here.
Georgiana Duberstein. Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Need a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Second. Roll call.
Trustees George Duberstein.
Aye.
Christian Almeth. Aye. Wally Priest.
Aye.
Mary Colville. Aye. Jack Schnaueth.
Aye.
Georgiana Duberstein. Aye. Motion carried.
We have a guest tonight, Mr. Tim O'Brien, the only one amongst us, well, one or two who's dressed up. Tim is with the Wintrust Community Bank and will be talking to us about the potential well loan. Tim, it's all yours.
Thanks, Mayor Daley. Just some background. I work for Wintrust Financial with State Bank of the Lakes. Wintrust Financial has 15 charters. I work across all 15 charters doing specifically this type of lending to local governments. So when Mayor Daley reached out to State Bank of the Lakes, the local relationship manager then reaches out to me, and I work hand in glove with the relationship manager at State Bank of the Lakes. So here to present the proposal on behalf of State Bank of the Lakes for the well project. This financing was up to $750,000. It's what we like to call a delayed draw term loan. Basically, it's a 10-year term loan. We're offering a 12-month interest-only drawdown period, whereby the village could draw down proceeds of the note as needed, as invoices came in for the well project. During that drawdown period, it would be interest-only. Principal payments and the actual amortization wouldn't start until drawdown is complete. After that point, it amortizes over the remaining term, whatever that is, once we stop drawing down. So it could be 9.5 years, it could be 9 years, if the village were to use all 12 months of the drawdown. This being a little far out from when we potentially close on this, we are offering indicative pricing. That's obviously subject to change based on market conditions, but we wanted to give you kind of an idea of where the pricing would be at this point. So the quote here is 10-year U.S. Treasury rate plus 125 basis points. This would be considered bank qualified tax exempt, which we could work with Scott on getting that ironed out, and we can go over that in more detail. With that, there's a floor rate. So the rate cannot go below 495. So based on where the U.S. Treasury rate is, I think the last time I checked it was 353. So you have 125 basis points onto that. We'd be at the floor rate of 495 because that would fall below that. Again, just indicative for kind of discussion purposes. I think what we talked about as far as potential timeline for this would be sometime in May, and just like you would get a mortgage and you lock your rate closer to when the loan is actually slated to begin, is similar to what we would do here. We lock the rate as we get closer. We want to offer a fixed rate, not a variable rate, obviously, which is what our local governments are used to for the full 10-year term, but that would obviously lock closer to the approach is. P&I payable once it starts amortizing on a monthly basis. We talked about the 12-month interest-only non-revolving draw period. As far as an initial draw is concerned, we contemplate having the village draw down initially $50,000 at closing. That has to do with the tax exempt status of the loan. And again, we'd be working with Scott on that to make sure that's the correct amount and the process.
Just want to interrupt a second to explain something to the board. When we spoke about this at the last meeting, I said the initial drawdown was $25,000. That was for a 6-month drawdown period. When I talked to Tim afterwards, he indicated, or we agreed, that if we want to draw cash out on the loan over a 12-month period as the bills come in. The first withdrawal would have to be $50,000. We still haven't reached the point where we have to make a decision on whether that's 6 months at 25,000 initial or 12 months at 50. Once I get a better feel for the billing approach, when we might start expecting bills from Robinson, I should have a better answer. And we are looking, if all goes well, Tim, to approve this 1 month from now.
Yeah. And to add on to that, actually, the initial draw amount, I honestly, the bank really doesn't have a strong opinion about that. It's more for the bank qualification. So again, we'll work with Scott on that.
Yeah, it's a tax exempt part of their loan transaction that we will have to verify with, we'll coordinate with Tim and his team and get this done. But there's some regulations about just having things hang out there that we don't want this to turn into an interest or a taxable interest transaction. And if that happens, then you're not going to get the same rate. And then we also have to make up some penalty rates, and it's not a good situation if and the draw relates to the bank qualification, which is a bunch of IRS regulations.
Would it be a lot easier if they just charged us no interest?
I'm assuming that would be like, I would hope that.
Yes, that would be my opinion.
So if to that point, if Scott comes back, this month when we're writing out all the details and says, hey, actually the minimum amount for the bank qualification is $30,000, the bank is okay with that. We're not set on $50,000. We just want the minimum amount to qualify for the tax exempt status.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. The loan is fully prepayable at any time prior to maturity. That means you have surplus cash flow come in, you want to pay down the loan. You can do that at any time without penalty. We keep the same schedule, obviously. You can pay it off if you come into, like I said, a surplus that you want to pay off ahead of time. But obviously the maximum term on this is going to be 10 years. No closing costs or expenses for this transaction. The only thing that the bank is obviously getting paid is the accrued interest from the loan. We agreed to document the loan as well in collaboration with Scott in the tax exempt and validity opinion that he would provide based on our documents. But we would agree to document the loan on bank perfect documents as well. That's pretty much it for me. Jerry's mandate was to keep it short and simple, so I kept it to kind of a two-pager.
Excellent job.
I appreciate that. But I'm certainly can answer any questions you guys might have.
All right, board members. George, why am I surprised?
You mentioned a 12-month drawdown period. Do I assume from that, or can I assume from that the total amount, whatever it turns out, we're actually going to draw down or draw out, has to be done within that 12-month period?
Correct. Yep, and then we're going to only amortize, obviously, what you draw, what the balance of that is. So say you only end up needing $650, that's what the P&I payments, the monthly P&I payments are going to be $650 out the rest of the term.
Okay, so we have an initial withdrawal, whether it's 25 or 50, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it has to be done within 12 months. But it can be done in any amount thereafter, thereafter the initial drawdown or draw out. Any amount at any time?
Correct. I mean, we're not talking probably about a $5 draw.
Well,
$10 draws, multiple times a month. But yes, that's the idea of the proposal for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? Georgiana,
First to you, did
why don't you
Robinson,
pull that in a little bit closer?
did Robinson say this thing would be done in a year?
Ira?
Yeah,
Ira
so
Rodriguez is our engineer from Robinson Engineering.
good evening, everyone. We're looking at an 8-month construction project in which I think we'll probably see 3 to 4 payout payment requests from the contractor. So, you know, if we get 4, we're talking, you might have to go draw down every 2 months or so from the loan.
But project completion roughly,
Yeah, so
if all goes well?
if everything goes well, we're looking to start construction in July with everything being completed by early January. That's when we can start the new well and have it in operations and start everything.
Maybe clarify one point that we discussed in the last few weeks. It may be completed in January. When might we expect it to go on safely online?
Yeah, so it'll be shortly after that. Once we get everything installed, we'll start doing testing and then making sure everything's running properly, monitoring everything. So, you know, sometime in February, we'll have a fully operational well. That's what we're looking at.
Some more questions. Can we pay the principal as well as the interest during this 12 months?
Yeah, it's non-revolving, so basically you can't take it out and put it back, if that makes sense. The draws have to be up to $750. With a revolving line of credit, for instance, if you were to have a $750,000 revolving line of credit, you could take it out and then put it back, and your available commitment is still $750,000. What we're expecting in this case is whatever you're taking out, you can certainly pay it back earlier anytime you want, but you lose that availability to keep drawing it down as you do it, if that makes sense.
Okay, another question. We are getting less interest on the money that we have in savings than it's going to cost us for this loan. Would it be more advisable if you could put on an objective hat and tell us whether we would be better off using our money, because then there would be less interest lost?
One of the things, before you answer, one of the approaches we've talked about is, do we spend down our reserves to pay for this well? And my stance has been, and we've discussed it with the board, no, we take the loan, keep our reserves up at a level that in case there's an emergency, not with just with the well, but somewhere in the village, we would have our reserves to cover it. Georgiana has raised the point, do we make the loan our emergency fund?
So I'm going to kind of balk at that question a little bit, and I'll kind of explain why. We're not acting as advisors in this transaction. We're not a fiduciary, so we're not going to advise you as to the best course of action. The village came to the bank asking for a proposal, and we're offering them the proposal that is acceptable to the bank. So with that caveat, what I would say is the nice thing about what we are offering is, say you only wanted to draw down $400,000 and you wanted to use reserves for some of the invoices or half or whatever the case may be. With this obligation, you can do that. So I don't know. I know that doesn't fully answer your question, but what I'm hoping to offer, or the bank's hoping to offer here, is really the flexibility to make this what you want it and draw up to a certain amount.
There's also some issues with your fund balances that your auditor is recommending typically that you keep a certain amount of reserves. So, and as Tim said, they're not acting as a financial advisor and evaluating all of the different options. I think that's been done more internally. But the fund balance goes back to your audits and the practices, your municipal practices that underlie the financial policies of the village.
We would have enough anyway.
Well, that
We would have enough cash.
Right, we would have
However-
enough cash to meet that requirement, even if we use $750,000.
How can we answer that without knowing what the, I mean, I can't look at
Because I think it has to be like a certain number of months' worth of money that you have set aside in cash.
Yeah, I'm not also, neither am I aware of what is in the funds or what the fund balances are, but that is also, I'm just saying, that's a consideration and one that Tim doesn't have the background and nor do Ron.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
The only thing that I would add too is, this is obviously a promissory note, so there's no dedicated levy of property taxes with this. These are bonds, so these are payable from your current operating revenues. So there's no, obviously, property tax backing on these notes. So that would just be another thing that obviously we're looking at when we're doing the underwriting of this. And as far as our process is concerned, if the village wants to move forward with this and wants to approve this, next board meeting, what we would do is we would provide you a commitment letter very similar to what we have outlined here, but it would be a fully credit-approved commitment with a rate, final rate as well, assuming that we're going to close in a reasonable amount of time. Yep.
If we were to decide to take a smaller loan, how would that affect the interest rate at all?
It probably wouldn't affect it too much. We would certainly revisit it for sure. The rate more has to do with, our cost of funds and our internal profitability, but more so the term that you're going out, less so the par value of the dollar amount.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. I want to restate, the board has heard it before, that I still support going for the loan. I understand Georgianne's point, but if we were to take that money and that 50,000 initial draw, or 25 to 50, only if we need it for an emergency. If the emergency doesn't develop, then we've got $25,000 we're paying, 25 to 50,000 we're paying interest on with no use. I prefer that we take the loan, and if our reserves remain as high as we've been able to keep them over the last number of years, we just pay the loan off quicker. Yes, I understand that the interest rate might be higher. I just believe it's a more conservative route to take, but I don't vote.
I just had questions.
I understand, nothing wrong with questions. All right, Mr. O'Brien, you are free to stay or free to go. Just in case you want to go home and see family, have dinner, something like that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
We'll be in touch. Before we move on, any questions for Scott? Well, you can say it if you
No pressure, Scott.
All right, very good. Ira? No questions. You can stay or you can go. It's a long drive to Chicago, isn't it?
It is, especially with the construction.
Thank you for coming. Have a safe trip. You can stay.
Let's think about it.
All right. Moving on with the agenda, public comments. Mr. Coxon.
Hi there, I'm John Cox, and I'm a 12-year resident of the village, and thank you for the opportunity to say a few words during the public comment period. I'd like to use my time to express appreciation to the Village of Hainesville's Public Works Department for all their work over the past year, along with the contractors who take care of our fountains throughout the village. Their efforts make an ongoing contribution to the character of the village, and whether we're talking about snow removal, maintaining our parks and common areas, or something as simple and fundamental as servicing the trash bins and wet waste containers throughout the village, the Public Works Department continuously manages these responsibilities promptly and professionally. They're the first people to wave to me when I'm doing my walk in the morning, and much appreciated. For me personally, the first sign of spring came earlier this month when the fountains in our ponds were activated for the season. It cannot be easy to keep our fountains in working order, source replacement parts, etc. But it's my personal opinion that our ponds and fountains add to the ambiance of our community and are one of the reasons why Hainesville stands head and shoulders above the other villages in the area. So on behalf of all those residents who feel like we appreciate these efforts, a big thank you to all those who make this happen. That includes village staff, all you elected officials, of course, along with the contractors and the employees of the Public Works Department. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking the time and sharing that. We work hard at doing our best for the village, and it's good to hear that. And you're welcome to come back anytime. If you have good news. All right, and again, you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but don't feel obligated.
I'm happy to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Trustees George Duberstein,
Aye.
Christian Allen. Aye. Wally Freese,
Aye.
Mary Koval. Aye. Jack Chanel.
Aye.
Georgiana Duberstein.
Hi, we have some students here that maybe we need to explain about packets and information and stuff.
Are you guys attending from a class?
Yes,
Central or North?
Central.
Central, what teacher?
Ms. Brown.
The board.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. You look so mature, I didn't think. Central or North?
Center.
Same teacher?
Yeah.
Okay. Typically, for proof of the teacher, you get to take a picture with me. It's worked in the past. I'm available for $5. We'll take a picture towards the end of the meeting, if that works for you. The board gets a packet every month before the meeting. They get the agenda, they get all the background information. So they're not just up here rubber stamping these motions. They've had a chance to look at it, ask questions of the staff or myself prior to the meeting. And that's why sometimes there's not a lot of discussion. Okay? It's not just oh, the mayor said so, so this has got to be good. Although I wouldn't argue with that. If you have any questions after, feel free. I'll be around. We can talk about it, or at least get you a picture. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's another 5. Consent agenda. Reports of discussion, finance, Mary.
Nothing new unless anybody has questions.
All right. Remember, we can, I do have one item to bring up under finance. We advertise for some seasonal help at $15 an hour. We started advertising probably 3 weeks ago. We've had 2 applications, and neither one of them qualified because they didn't have driver's license. Lindenhurst is paying $18 an hour. Round Lake Park is paying $17 an hour. So after talking to Mary today and Wally, we decided to up that rate from $15 to $17 an hour, which is approximately a $9,700 increase in the budget for seasonals. That adjustment will be made to the proposed budget prior to the next meeting that you vote on. I had a conversation with Round Lake Park, and they are having trouble getting people. I had a conversation today with Bob Springer of Lake County building permits. He was contemplating offering $12 to $15 an hour for their summer help until he talked to me, and now he's got to figure out how he has to get it higher. And this difficulty of finding employees is ongoing from the pandemic. So we hope it works. Any questions about that? Concerns? All right. Thank you. Public Works, Wally?
Yeah, look, I was actually met with Tim yesterday, I believe, and stuff like that. We were talking about the empty lot out in front of Public Works, what we're trying to look at and maybe developing and stuff like that. And I want to get a meeting together with the mayor and Chris also, so we can discuss it and find out what we really need to do there. It seems a little wet out there, okay, at times, and so there might be a little bit more development that we need. Our first initial thought at that time was to make it an area where we can have special events, okay, also, or put Christmas lighting out there. That's how this all started. It seems that we're budgeting some money into it for the improvements, We're just gonna make sure and verify that that is enough, or that what we're gonna be using it for, and make sure that that is developed, and we're not gonna have a hazard of flooding or whatever else. So we're gonna go with that, and we'll set that meeting in the next couple of weeks. And with that, I'm gonna talk about, since it wasn't in the packet, and I'll give you Tim's report that he submits to the board, okay? Adam and I finished up, and this is what he wrote, Adam and I finished up installing strobes on our vehicles. These are the safety strobes when they're out there and everything else. The rear strobes for the Chevys and also for the Toolcat and for the Gator. They were starting to clean out the bays. We have 8 bays in the Public Works building, okay? And 2 of them, well, 2 of them are being 1.5 are being rented out for different storage for Mavis, and then also the police department. And half of that is, that 1/2 bay is gonna be actually our new well house. Okay, and that's, so they're starting to clean all that out, moving everything over, getting everything rearranged to get ready for starting the well. Back in February, we had a bad ice storm and stuff like that, and even though there wasn't a lot of damage to properties, there was a lot of tree damage. They went out and picked up 4 to 5 dump truckfuls of branches and everything else. And there's some trees that will be taken down on Big Oak and also on Forest Glen, okay, on the old part of town. They were doing their maintenance for the spring and summer cleanup and everything else on our trucks to get them ready, so that, it's the biggest work time for them is those 2 times. So he makes sure that everything's maintained and ready to go. They also remodeled their little break room that they have over there to make it more efficient. They use it as an office also, so saw they had a pretty good, nice little table there. So, and as the mayor said about the seasonal help, that they're having difficulties trying to find seasonal help and everything else, so we're going to work through that. And I think just saying that, thank you very much for your acknowledgement of these guys. They do a good job for us and everything else. So with that, if you have any questions, you can also feel free to contact Tim Seiler. Just call the village hall, and he'll explain everything to you.
If any of your classmates are 17, 18, or friends, and they have a driver's license, and they're looking for summer work that will take them from the end of school to probably August or September if they want, tell me, give us a call.
Yeah.
It's good, honest work, and we're wonderful people to work with.
And you get a good team.
Okay, all right, thank you. Community events, George.
Replies to our emergency operation plan have continued to trickle in, but there's still a number of outstanding replies, and I'll probably give you the list tomorrow, so you can see what we can do to tack them up a little bit. Working with Squawco on those 2 big events coming up, one in May 7th, the compost event. And just to reiterate for all of you, we are getting a big pile of compost that will be available for the taking of everybody in the village and beyond, I guess. We'll have it out in the back here. And I'm working on maybe having not a few, but a food truck there as well. I'm waiting for a call back on that. I'm working on getting the audio guy and the accommodations comfort in for the Civil War reenactment. And other than that, all the other things that we need to do will probably happen in May or later.
Thank you, sir. Special events, Chris.
run this past the board. I reached out to the mayor. I'm considering doing another big event over at the park, like we did for the 175th. So I'm looking to get an idea if the board would like, feel that this should be, something that we could do again this year. I know there's quite a few people that enjoyed it last year, and I'd like to start getting the ball rolling on that. I don't have any details set. I have nothing planned. I just need to get the approval of the board at this point. Mayor has given me the okay to run it past you, so I'm going to run it past you. And then second, 2 weeks, April 8th, food trucks are back and rolling in, one Saturday a month and then every Thursday. The one on April 8th, Saturday, is from 11 to 2. We'll have the local boy here, and then we'll have cookies with flavor as a dessert truck. So hopefully everyone can make it out for that. So we're going to give Saturdays a shot, so we can add an extra day in there. So just want to find out about the event.
We can do a head nod, George?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I know it was well received last year. And as I've been around the village, a lot of people have said to me they really enjoyed the event, keep the community together. And so I would certainly be in favor of it. And that would offer any help that you want.
Wally? I'm okay.
Yep.
Mary? Yep. Okay. Yes, I know your answer. Georgianne?
Yeah, right.
Georgianne?
I think it's a good idea. The people that I talked to have all raved about it and how well you organized it and the fun they had. So let's go for it.
Sounds like a go.
Let's do it.
Okay, very good.
With the bands?
Anything else?
Oh, so actually I was thinking of doing it in August this year. So beginning to middle of August.
Okay.
That's hot.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Great age, Georgianne.
Yes, our grade 8 meeting is April 6th. And we're having Michelle Baumann, who's the supervisor for Avon Township, attend. She's interested in getting senior input on activities that we would like to have the township do. So that'll be a nice meeting. It's 10:30, the first Thursday of the month. Non-commercial, anybody over 60 is welcome. Other news is we're having a village-wide cleanup on Earth Day, April 22nd, which is a Saturday from 9 to 11, with Sunday being a rain date, hopefully we won't need it, and then a pizza party to follow. And last but not least is Election Day is April 4th, and we are having the elections here in the Village Hall. So no excuse for people that have to go too far. This is an important election because it is the one that affects your property tax. So if you don't vote, you shouldn't be complaining about your property tax. Amen.
Let me ask our 4 students. Amongst your friends that may be old enough, if you know any, or amongst your government, are you in government class?
Yes.
Okay. What's the conversation about local elections?
There's not much conversation at all.
Yeah.
There's not much conversation at all.
Really? Okay.
Very little.
Nothing at all? Around the school, anything? Anybody really talking about voting?
I don't think anybody cares, like, if they're my age.
They're not 18, right?
I mean, I'm 18.
18?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to embarrass you.
Oh, and one other thing.
Well, hang on a minute, Georgia. Let me finish up. If you think about it, talk to your moms and dads about voting. Give it a shot, because this is the body. This election includes the village, the school districts, what else am I talking
Park district,
about?
library.
District. We're the ones that have the most input on how much your parents pay in property tax. Not we, the village, we mean all the bodies or entities that are up for election this year. Certainly the presidential election is important. But we're the ones that are looking to get money so we can do our stuff, and that's on the property tax bill. So it would be helpful if your moms and dads, brothers and sisters, aunts, uncles, and anybody else is willing to cast their vote. Because depending on who sits up here can have a great effect on how much money is asked for, whether it's here, Avon Township, or the Park District. Enough of a lecture. Okay, Georgiana.
We usually have had Honor Society students come and help as volunteers for the Earth Day cleanup. But any of the students that are interested are welcome to come and help. It's 9 to 11, and then it's a pizza party here in the conference room after, free, of course. So talk it up and see if you have an advisor or if there's somebody that can contact us to let us know that you would be interested, or pass the word around to your friends, because we usually can use quite a few people. We end up with many more students than we have residents helping on the cleanup day. So it's really important that we get a turnout, and Central is usually really good about coming.
Also, I might point out that you get a certificate for community services hours. I don't know how much you guys are interested in that as an additional thing for your school, but you do get, we give you a certificate so that you get community service hours as well.
And then there's free pizza. All right, thank you. I'm in a unique situation tonight. We have two clerks. I'll go with the senior clerk. Kathy, anything?
Nothing to report.
Christina?
No, nothing.
All right, thank you. My report is in the packet. Moving on, I need a motion for approval of the travel expense ordinance.
So moved.
Discussion?
Yes. Well, where do I put it? Let me find the first page. On the first page, you were talking about the maximum allowable reimbursement for travel. And it's not saying per day, it's just saying in general. And it was originally set at $750 for the event, whatever it was. I don't recall that there have been any times when we've had to have employees fly somewhere. And so I think that that $2,500 is more than what is needed. I don't know that anybody's waiting for more than a week. And
Let's address that.
so I would recommend maybe $1,000.
Christina went to clerk school this year for 1 week in Springfield, in Bloomington. Hotel alone was $900 for the entire trip, and it wasn't not the most expensive hotel in town. Plus her meals were on top of that. Her travel, the government allotted 57, 58 cents per mile. We exceeded $1,000. Now, just because it says $2,500 doesn't mean we're going to spend that much. But if the need is there, we would have to go through the approval process here.
It would or would not.
Well, it has to be approved by me or whoever is in the mayor. So if you look look back, we have had very little training take place. We've sent Public Works away for a little bit, and Christina is obviously a new situation, but that clerk school runs for 2 more years, 1 week each year. It hasn't been a policy that's been abused, but we had to exceed that 750 this year. Kathy?
You know, in the past, when we've gone for training, if you go to Chicago, their prices are totally different than from Springfield. And that's why we wanted to increase it, because it depends where you are going and the prices of everything.
Right, but have we ever had a training that had taken us into Chicago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The IML conference.
Yeah. Where, Jack?
So what happens if you exceed the 750?
What did we do this year, Kath?
Well, we just, I mean, we kind of know ahead of time because the
Registration?
the registration of the program itself, then the hotel room. So you kind of have an idea, but if you look at what Christina, the costs were.
That's not what I'm asking.
What happens if we exceed 750?
Correct. What happens?
If the policy is 750 and we break the policy?
Well, here, if Christina had to pay more than 750, what happened?
We paid it.
We paid it.
She got reimbursed, right?
Yes.
So then the 750 almost didn't matter.
It should have mattered because it's the policy.
Right.
My concern would be if we raise it to 2,500, that's almost opening the door. Not saying that it would happen, but right now there's like a stopgap of 750 that people just, they're aware of.
All right, let me ask you this. If, let's say we choose 1,000 for the sake of discussion. And what process would you want to put in place if, in fact, we know it's going to exceed that amount?
What's wrong with the process we have in place? Right?
Well,
If
the
you guys,
process was a guessing game.
but Kathy just got done telling us that she knew what the rate was and everything else. She exceeded the amount, and she got reimbursed for it.
Actually,
Right? So
yeah, I agree.
why can't we continue with that?
Not saying we can't. And we're offering a policy, and that's why we're discussing it here.
Sure.
But let me ask, who do you want to be able to approve that excessive amount? Should it come to the board, or should it just be up to the mayor?
I don't think something, depending on the amount, which we already have a good figure on, I would say probably Kelly and Lou.
Other thoughts, comments? Wally?
When we're increasing this, okay, things are not getting cheaper. So I figure if you're gonna go on a trip right now, it's probably gonna cost at least $1,500 for the week or better. So are we gonna keep on going and revisiting this and keep on going? They're not gonna exceed the $2,500, okay? They shouldn't, okay, because, what? Well, I'm just saying, if you want to sit there and say, hey, it has to be approved on what your expenses are going to be beforehand, you know, like, know exactly, kind of things, a round figure of what it is, and go to the mayor and say,
How many
thanks.
times have we exceeded it?
How many? This time?
Okay.
I have a thought.
I think there was also, I think it was Mike.
All right,
Okay, twice.
I've got a thought. Right now, on our budget request, we have a chart of who has to approve what, at what level. The department head can do this much, the mayor can do this much, the mayor and finance can do that much. How about we let this sit for a month? I'll come back with some recommendations based on that chart. We're increasing the number of eyes on the requested amount.
Sure.
And then, okay, George, you're confused. Right now, if Tim wants to buy something, and I may have the figures wrong because I haven't memorized it, he's clear to spend without, or with, on his own, I think it might be $1,000, okay? If he wants to spend more than 1,000, it has to be between 1,000 and, let's say, 1,500. It has to be approved by Tim and Kelly. Am I getting close? And then above that 1,500, it has to be approved by Tim, Kelly, Mary, and I. It's steps, okay, with more input on each level. I'm suggesting that I could probably put something together like that for travel.
Personally, I like that, and it's not necessarily for today or this month, next year. It's for 5 years, 10 years, it's, right? We need a process that's a little bit longer than our short-term vision.
Okay. I will work on that, and we'll have it on the agenda for next board.
George has something.
I do have a
Okay.
question.
I'm sorry, thank you.
I know we discussed it, but I don't know what the answer was, and that is, if the cap is 7,500, or not, 750 now, and we exceeded, what process did we actually go through to approve the overrules?
Me, Kelly and I, and Kathy, I mean, we found out what the bill was, and we need to pay it. Obviously, she needed the training.
Well, just as a thought, I would certainly agree with upping the cap, whatever we decided the cap should be, along with what you suggested as far as putting how many eyes at what level.
Okay, very good. Chris?
So, I don't know if this will help you or not, but me being a employee of the federal government, we have all these different travel documents and how to figure out mileage and per diem amounts for food and incidentals and even flying somewhere. If you'd like, I can gather up all that information and get it to you. You and I could even sit down and discuss it, look at it, and go from there, if it's something you'd be interested in.
I'll tell you what, before we do that, if you look at the rest of the policy here, that's the existing policy, it may address, boy, can you sit back for a second? I can't see you. I'm making eye contact. It may be covered already.
Okay.
So if you compare the two and say, hey, you still got something that makes more sense, give me a call.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Given the fact that you're going to come back with a recommendation, I assume we're going to table this.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're thinking of making a change in the policy, maybe not even have a maximum?
No, you have to have a maximum.
You have to have a
The
maximum.
statute requires a maximum.
Okay.
We can,
That's what,
I mean, brief discussion, it was going to go up a little bit,
yeah,
right? The table and more eyes and everything else.
yeah. For approval,
Okay.
if it goes above.
Yeah.
Right.
All right?
That's what I was saying.
I'd like you to look at the meal reimbursement as well. I think $100 is sufficient, but if that's going to be part of your overall thing, then
Well, probably, any recall, Christina, on your meal cost? The breakfast was supplied, wasn't it?
Breakfast was included, breakfast and lunch were included, and I believe dinner was included on 2 days. And I don't think it was $50 a day, other than that.
The IRS rate in Chicago is high. If you go to Chicago, there's an amount for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's something that's published. It's pretty high for Chicago. And if you were to go to Washington D.C., it's for some reason, which some of our clients do sometimes, that's still higher. So that would be something to think about, that you are going to have a higher cost for 3 meals in Chicago especially.
Most of our training has been Wilmington, Springfield. I eat in restaurants around here regularly, and a dinner, even at Nemo's, would cost, with a moderate tip, $35 easily. And of course, the policy doesn't pay for any alcohol. I had breakfast at the Hill.
Triangle, Hillside.
Pardon me? Hillside. just last week, and my share was $20. Food, just like in the store, is just shot up. So let's see what I can come up with, put it before you, you'll get it before the next meeting for review, and we'll talk about it. We don't have,
If the IRS specifies what per diem should be for various different places, why don't we use that?
I don't know that there is one for Springfield and Bloomington.
All
So there's, the bigger cities I know are listed, and I haven't looked at it in probably 2 or 3 years since this statute came into play. But I don't think they get that far down.
I'll leave it in your capable hands, Mayor.
thank you, sir. I appreciate your trust. Okay. Need a motion to table.
So moved.
Second.
It has to be the same people. It's Wally and Mary because they were the ones who motioned.
Okay.
So they have to motion to,
Mr.
table.
Green, I need a motion to table. So,
Second.
roll call.
Trustees George Duberstein,
Aye.
Chris Schnaueth. Aye. Wally Freese,
Aye.
Mary Koval. Aye. Jack Schnaueth,
Aye.
Georgiana Duberstein.
Aye.
See, we don't always agree. Need a motion to approve an ordinance for approval of the cable franchise agreement. For the audience, Comcast agreement, which supplies cable access to the village, expires in August of 2023. The agreement has been updated to include some changes required by law, and Ansel Blink has reviewed and approved the changes.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Trustees George Duberstein,
Aye.
For discussion, I'm sorry.
I know you're surprised. So this isn't a new contract? I mean, it's another,
It's an extension of the franchise.
It said that we get 5% of the gross, but I don't know what gross that is. Is that just for what people in the village pay to have Comcast?
Scott, do you recall?
There's a definition of gross revenue in the document, so that's what we get 5% of. It's found on page 2. It's
Or gross revenue?
right. So you get 5%. The village gets 5% of the gross revenue, this is a statutory change that Comcast and the other providers were able to push through the legislature, which didn't benefit the local governments.
It still doesn't explain what the gross revenue is based on.
Sure it does. It's the,
So calculated in accordance includes a certain service. Okay. My other question is, do you have any idea how much we've collected in the past?
Not off the top of my head. I know Kelly has it at an accountant. She's not here. It's not a great deal of money.
Just curious.
I understand. Kelly will be back on vacation next week. If we could give her a call or drop her an email.
It says something about that we could use a channel if we wanted. Is there any reason why we would consider that?
We'd have to have something to put on.
Well, I mean, it just.
I'm not being facetious.
I mean, maybe instead of YouTube, we would put the meetings or
How many,
announcements or whatever.
you have Comcast at home, I assume.
Yes.
How many village board meetings or public service meetings have you watched in your 25-some years in town?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Had I asked?
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustees George Duberstein,
Aye.
Chris Schnaueth.
Aye.
Wally Freese.
Aye.
Mary Koval. Aye. Jack Schnaueth.
Aye.
Georgiana Duberstein.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting closed, 7:26. Thank you all. I'll come back, you guys, we'll get a picture of it right now.